Well, hello, everybody. Here we are, another episode of Ascension with A Course in Miracles. And what this title really means, to ascend, is to raise our consciousness, to see what's happening in the world, but not be of it. That is what Ascension means for us right now, while we are in the midst. Hello, Miss Stacy, and welcome back, Vicki. And let's see, today is January the 12th. So Ascension is basically, let me make sure I got my volume all the way. There we go. To ascend is that humanity has been caught up in the 3D consciousness, the world of physicality, that what we see, feel, touch is what is real. We have been ascending since long time ago. Think about it. Jesus came in. One human comes in to a pretty dark and dreary world that was very, very low consciousness, very heavy consciousness at that time. Our consciousness is not as heavy as it was when Jesus came to the planet. That's why we only had a few teachers like him who came at the time. So we might have had 1, 2 teachers. We had Buddha before him 500 years earlier. Teachers were not very common who taught truth. Then we've been moving little by little. We had a couple hundred teachers throughout the maybe 1,000 years ago. Then maybe 500 teachers came in not long after that. Then we had thousands of teachers earlier in the 1800s, early 1900s, when we were questioning religions and forming new religions. America was a beautiful place for what they called back then the Great Awakening, which was really leaving the traditional church, and all these new churches got formed. That's why America has so many different denominations. So that was thousands of teachers teaching something new and different. That was the birth of new thought. When we began in the late 1800s, philosophers like Thoreau, and then we moved into the early 1900s, and we had people like, for example, the Fillmores, who established unity. We had Ernest Holmes, who established science of mind. We had, oh my goodness, Eddie Baker, I can't remember the name fully, but we little by little progressed in terms of teachers, the numbers of teachers that were appearing on planet Earth. Let me change her name there so everybody knows who it is. And then we started moving into the 70s, the 60s, the 70s, Ram Dass, teachers, Osho coming to America, bringing the Eastern philosophies. All of a sudden, we have thousands of teachers. And that moved little by little into the time of Wayne Dyer, Marianne Williamson, where we had tens of thousands of teachers. That gave way to, not too long after that, through the proliferation of groups like Hay House printing books for so many of us that were waking up, then you had hundreds of thousands of teachers. Well, when we hit, I'm going to say that 2000, the year 2000s, we now have moved into hundreds of thousands of teachers. Today, we have millions, literally millions of teachers, because every single one that studies A Course in Miracles and shares what they're learning with another is a teacher of God, which is a teacher of truth. And Course in Miracles and the other books that have been channeled after as follow-ups, as well as all of the other teachings that have flourished out of these particular books that are like Marianne Williamson's A Return to Love, or I forget his first name, but last name is Jampolsky, who wrote the book, there's no love, there's no fear in love, or Love Has No Fear. Can't remember the exact name. Then you've got people like Don Miguel Ruiz. Each one of them, including somebody that most people didn't think of as spiritual in the beginning, like Tony Robbins, that was helping, with self-development. Some people here, you might have been to the EST programs that later became Landmark. Yeah, those were not necessarily considered spiritual. They were personal development, but they were expanding the mind into accepting responsibility for how we feel and preparing the mind to open up to the more esoteric spiritual type teachings that now are on the planet. Well, if you take all of those people who were influenced at some level, we're talking now hundreds of millions of people that even through simple things that you wouldn't necessarily consider that they are teaching, that they're helping people wake up, are those who teach yoga, life coaches, energy healers. We are disseminating truth even in our own homes when we begin to feel the truth in our hearts. So the ascension is more of us are rising up to the job of speaking truth by knowing truth first. That's why the truth will set us free. It's setting us free from the bondages, the shackle of the density of the 3D world. So humanity right now, we are in what I call the 4D world. We have enough people whose minds are very clearly trained in truth. And we have enough people who have been moved beyond the mind trained to the heart opened, living truth. So we have a very, very strong 4D world on this planet right now. Because there is so much light on the planet, and by light, I mean people illuminating the path. That's what the light is people who, through our examples, like those of you who are here listening to this, through our examples, we know that we want to be loving, kinder. We want to be more gentle. So that is the light that is necessary on the world to illuminate the path, to show people another way. So today, the world appears very chaotic because there's a lot of light saying, we want things to be different. We want a return to God. We want a return to what is natural. We want to honor the body for what the body is, an expression of God. Therefore, there has to be goodness, godliness. There has to be well-being in this body. I want to tap into that. And we have the old way. What do you mean your body sends out anything? Your body is supposed to be a garbage can, a receptacle that we fill up with low density foods, with foods that air that is polluted, skies that have chemtrails, water that is undrinkable in so many parts of the world. So we have two very different paradigms, from everybody is born to be filled from the outside to now we recognize that everybody comes to the planet to gift what is on the inside. And those of us who are grandparents, we know the gifts that these babies bring. Nobody teaches them how to be happy. Nobody teaches them how to be creative. Nobody teaches them how to be loving and kind. Nobody teaches them that. That's natural. So we are realizing that it's time for us to be led from the inside out. So the world is shifting. We are ascending. We are raising our vibration, raising our consciousness, because we're looking at things from where God sees it at the top of the mountain versus where the eagle sees it at the bottom of the mountain, in the valley, stuck in the muck, in the middle of things, being distracted by the things of the world, all designed, deliberately designed to distract us from who we really are. So humanity is untethering ourselves from all of the ways that we have been distracted from a pure connection with God. And the gift of COVID is a line in the sand. When COVID hit, it sent everybody the gift that you can now go into your homes, stay quiet, stay alone, go inside. Those who saw it that way connected deeper, began to research what's going on, began to move into a place of greater curiosity. Those who were afraid by it doubled down into, I need somebody to protect me and make me feel safe. Who do I watch? Who do I need to listen to tell me what to do? So we have a bifurcation. We have a total, complete division between those who are, their consciousness is rising, and those who their consciousness is literally lowering, because fear makes you go into more of a childish, protect me, mommy, daddy, protect me behavior, because you feel totally, completely vulnerable in the way that you don't feel power inside of you because you haven't connected with God inside. You still look to the outside authority to tell you who you are, what you should be doing, what you should be taking, and how you're going to get out of whatever is happening by listening to them. Those who are listening within, we're seeing we've got to think from a higher perspective. We can't think from the lower chakra. We cannot keep going to the old mind where we store in our solar plexus, where we store the beliefs of the world that block our ability to listen to our gut. We don't listen to our gut because the third chakra spins in front of the gut. And it's the chakra that holds our stories. It holds our memories, our beliefs, the knowingness. Those memories, that stored knowledge creates neurological pathways in the brain, but we don't think with the brain. We have this awareness, this knowingness, these beliefs that activate the neurological pathways in the brain, that activate the chemicals that send signals to the body based on what we're believing. So we got to clean up the third chakra. Well, the third chakra has the beliefs that it has because the second chakra, which is lower than the belly button area, is where we stored our emotions. Unprocessed emotions are in the second chakra. Second chakra is when we're in the 3D world, it holds our suffering. So not only do we have our suffering, but we have the ego pride of the stored beliefs that are part of the third chakra. So when you look at this, if you look at the chakras, that's why those colors are that way. We've got our third chakra, and we've got our second chakra, and our base chakra, the root chakra, is because we have been basically demasculated. I don't know the right way to say that. Unmasculated, defeminized. We have been completely indoctrinated into thinking that the roles of men and women are a certain way. Men have been told just to be providers, conquerors, and protectors. And although those are parts of the masculine, the divine masculine, that's not all that there's to it. There's so much more. There's nurturing, there's creativity, there's collaboration, cooperation. It's not a dog-eat-dog world. The feminine, which is a nurturer, has been told you're the one who stays home, takes care of the kids. Of course, as more of the what I'm going to call the egoic evil on the planet, not only did it teach women to become the protectors of the children at home, take care of the babies, and be the good wives to the husbands who are busy working, over time got indoctrinated into having a false sense of power, go get a job, so that we literally would not be home with the children, ensuring that the next generation was stable and strong and well balanced. So we got totally unbalanced. So women, nothing wrong with working, nothing wrong with that, but so much of it was done as a like this false sense of liberation from one way of being imprisoned into another one, now working and more debt, more needing more stuff, needing to compare more to the Joneses. So the whole family was sent into so much chaos when we lost the ability for both mom and dad to be well balanced. So that lack of understanding of our male and female roles, and I'm not even going to touch on the confusion that has been taught around sexuality, is held in our root chakra. So our base chakra, our second chakra, our third chakra are what runs the 3D world. To move into the 4D world, we're moving into the heart chakra, fourth chakra. We're beginning to want to see another way that is of the heart. We realize we've got to learn how to love unconditionally. And it starts with self-love. That's the journey to raise our consciousness, to come up out of the darkness, is through the fourth chakra, that we begin to love ourselves enough to stop being in hiding, to stop being in fear and anger and resentment, to let go of those old baggage that we've been dragging forever. So the fourth chakra is, we're ascending, we're moving up through the physical body to enter the heart, because if you're not in your heart, you can't open up to those divine guidances that come from the upper chakras. So those upper chakras are where we begin to open up to receiving guidance. We open up our third eye to see more clearly. We begin to use our voice to speak up from more of a loving place. But that doesn't happen without us being pulled back into the lower chakras, because the ego operates from the lower chakras. And while we have egoic beliefs, it takes the upper chakra information, knowledge, and begins to use it for its own purposes. This is what religion did. We took all the beautiful holy things, all of the visions that the saints had, that they were opening up their third eyes. They were speaking the truth. People like Rumi, beautiful saints who spoke of love. Well, the ego, if you don't clean up your bottom three chakras, the ego says, oh, I'm going to use these beautiful things to rule the world with. And we have, for the most part, transferred religion, many of the light workers, into spirituality, which is still not necessarily operating in alignment with spirit. Because in spirituality, too many of us want to live from the light and all of that, and we don't want to look at the dark. We don't want to see it. Cancel that, that ugly news show. I don't want to see that. I know that there's starvation or child trafficking happening, or I don't want to watch that. I don't want to give attention to that, because if I put attention, it's going to expand. Well, when you ascend and you clean up from here, you clean up what's in the lower chakras. When you are activating what is true about you, and you begin to replace what is not true about you, we begin to come back into the middle where we operate balanced. Right now, humanity has a lot of people who are in that place of, oh yeah, I want a beautiful world, but now have to face the lower chakras. And the lower chakras is basically the way humanity has made this world, made a world of suffering, because we didn't treat each other as the brothers and sisters, holy brothers and sisters that we are. We didn't treat each other as the beings that recognized the divine in ourselves, let alone in the other. So we are at a perfect moment in time where we are going to see the split. But the split, we have to get comfortable with what the split is all about, is a very clear no to that which is of the ego, to that which is low frequency. That means a lot of the people who are still operating in the 3 dimension, and it's still the majority of people, they have to use their free will and choose to get curious. Now, I believe many of them are they're going to get curious as things intensify, because the intensification is happening because there are more with their eyes open, with light, sharing truth. These things are not coming out of nowhere. They are being discovered by those who are willing to go into the darkness, to look at it, not to cancel it, not to judge it, but rather to say that is not what we were created to do. So the few millions, I'm going to say a couple 100 million, that have their light turned on, that are in curiosity and recognizing that we all have free will to create this experience, meaning there's nobody to blame. We all chose to enter into an incarnation and have this experience. That's what souls do. There's nothing wrong with descending into evil. There's nothing wrong from God's perspective. From a human perspective, well, that's where suffering happens. Do you want that? If you live from your heart, you don't want that. Not only do you not want that, you can't make that. So as more people live in this world, observing what's happening, seeing how those who are exposing things are casting the light on the things that those who were, I'm going to say, asleep are now looking at, they're going, what the heck? How could that happen? How could that be so? Well, they now have, thanks to 2 years, almost 2 years of experience, now they have evidence to look at. Because when you live deeply in your root chakras, you need solid evidence. You cannot feel intuition. You can't listen to your gut. So you have to have evidence, because the ego is an evidence-based thought system. So those who are seeing the evidence now irrefutable, because those in the light are casting light on it. I'm sure you all have seen lots of doctors, lots of filmmakers, lots of news journalists, real journalists, lots of teachers, even people in politics who are shining the light on what is corrupt in a very, very strong, powerful, and I'm going to say loving way. They're not here to shame these people. They're here using their fifth chakra, speaking absolutely. That voice that's coming through them, speaking truth to power, but not here to judge, because to judge and shame is a low frequency. So not that we don't have people doing that, but the light that is illuminating the darkness is coming from a much purer place. It's coming from a place that desires a greater planet for all of us. It comes from a place that sees that we can create a wonderful planet for our children, our grandchildren, and whether all are aware of it or not, I'm going to say most are probably not. Because we love ourselves, we are preparing the planet we are going to incarnate into. So as we ascend, we know that we're returning to being in alignment with our true self, but we're doing it while we still have a physical body. So we are observing what needs to be done. That's why so many people are being called to, maybe in their retirement days, I know like you are doing, Kat, be more active, proactive in what's happening in our school systems, what's happening in the medical world, in the legislative world, becoming a lot more clear that we have to get involved. Not everybody's going to be called to that, but the work of the awakening, the great awakening now, is really going to be affected by the majority who are willing to break up their sleeves and go into action. Now, action can look in many ways. Prayer, send money, participate, do the calls, do the letters, go to the meetings, use your voice. Lots of different ways to be in action. Use your money to put on events. Lots of people are coming out of the woodworks, some well-to-do, some not necessarily that well-to-do, but they know that what's the point of having money if not for the liberation of humanity? And they are taking a stand to help humanity see more clearly by bringing in as many ways evidence, information, shining light on teachers who are really teaching truth, because even our teachers are bifurcating. We have the teachers of truth who walk it, and we have the teachers of truth who talk it. That is absolutely happening, which is why I'm sure everybody here feels a resonance with some teachers, but not with others that we might have been listening to for a while. I know that that's happened to me. There are teachers that I listen to now that before, when I was here, what they were saying made a lot of sense. But now that I'm there, I'm like, that doesn't lift me. I need a teacher who's operating in a higher frequency, which is why I love the teachings of Jesus, and you can't get any higher than that. So I absolutely love that I have the ability to connect to that frequency through the teachings of A Course in Miracles. So today I was inspired for us to look at lesson 164. The title of it is, Now Are We One with Him Who Is Our Source? Because you cannot walk the talk until you are clear about who you are. Who's going to do the walking? The ego's talking it, but who's going to walk it? The part of you that's going to walk it is your soul, is your essence, is the aspect of you that is the Christ consciousness. And to accept the Christ consciousness, we have to accept, well, who put it in there? If it wasn't me, if it wasn't my mom and dad when they conceived me, who put Christ consciousness in me? It could only come from one place, and that is the creative source of all that is. When it creates all that is, it puts itself in all that is. So the Christ consciousness is our individual activation of God inside of us. So Jesus activated the Christ his way, but Daisy and I are going to activate the Christ in us our way. We're going to do it in our communities, in our families. This is why Jesus said greater works we would do than he could, excuse me, because he was at a time on the planet where we only had maybe a couple 100 million people. We live in a planet today where, especially through social media, billions of people. Daisy and I can affect a lot more people than Jesus could at his time. So he gives us information through these teachings so that they can be disseminated. And then we each get a hold of it. We do the cleansing that needs to happen. We clear the lower chakras by facing our own darkness, by recognizing that we've been projecting it out onto the world, by seeing the relationships that we have affected with our insecurities, with our dysfunctions, with our need to manipulate, with our need to be in codependency. Once we can see, oh my gosh, I help to make the world I see, because that's how I treated people, because that's how I was treated. So I've been doing the same thing, expecting, to be happier, could never get happier, could never feel more fulfilled or freer, because my lower chakras basically were mucked up. So we are cleaning them up. So lesson 164, now are we one with him who is our source, can only be done once the heart begins the process of self-love. I gotta love myself enough to recognize that I am that magnificent, that I could possibly have that level of divinity inside of me. For a while on this journey, we can accept that God or Christ is in us, but it's not us. It's in there. It's like an alien invading our body, but it's not us. Until little by little, there is a merging that takes place. And that merging is nothing more than the decision to speak only love, to be practicing the characteristics of a teacher of love, when trust, when honesty, when gentleness, when joy, when open-mindedness, when tolerance, when I remember all the other ones, but patience, generosity, when all of those are practiced, are our deliberate, conscious way of being, and we practice it first, then we embody it. Once we embody those characteristics, ego falls away, because you're not listening to it. It's no longer pulling you into the lower chakras to scare you. You're operating from a clarity up here, because your third eye can see clearly now. You're seeing with the eyes of God, and you run everything through the heart. You listen to the gut, to intuition, from a third chakra that is unobstructed. You can hear clearly. There's no confusion. You get an aha, I got it. You get that intuitive hit, I'm doing it. Because emotionally, you are free to operate with the inspiration that just came to your third chakra. The second chakra, when it's all emotional and mucked up and gunked up and dense and tight, it doesn't know how to move because it's paralyzed in dysfunction. And you got to be clear about who you stand in your first chakra. I am a woman in this physical container, but I have masculine, feminine energy in balance in me now, because I know that the energy of the Christ is balanced energy. It's Father, Mother, God. It's in total balance. So I can no longer be operating like damsel in distress, this woman that needs somebody to take care of me. I need to operate in wholeness and confidence and certainty. So there's a lot that has to prepare us for recognizing that we're one. We're one with the source. So before we start this reading, I want to hear from you. Please unmute yourself and share how have you been applying Course in Miracles in your life in the past week. I want to hear from you while I drink some water.
Well, just a couple of days ago, it seemed that I had been really close in contact with someone who just got coronavirus. So it was like 2 days later that she got sick, I just accepted whatever is about that and didn't go into fear about it. I thought myself being calm, like if this is it just is what it is, and God is with me through this. Holy Spirit is with me, and so I just stayed calm and I didn't get upset at all, and turned out she didn't have COVID. She got tested. She thought she had COVID. She went in and she just, it was actually my boyfriend's daughter, and she just had a sinus, but it was like, oh, before I would have gone into worry about that and a little bit of stress, which would have been needless. And so I felt really good about just staying calm and peace that didn't disturb my peace of mind.
Well, that's beautiful, because that's we have to recognize that we're not bodies, that we're the energy that animates the bodies before we can go into peace about things like coronavirus. But something that is happening that we have to get comfortable with, we have to accept, this is part of the plan. There are a lot of amazing conscious people who are in high frequency. They are going to exit the planet through coronavirus, because that's it's a good exit strategy. It's happening, and it's just what is. It's a big portal to exit. A lot of people are going to leave the planet through coronavirus in lower frequencies. Their incarnations will take them to a repetition to come down into the world of karma. Those who exit at a higher frequency are exiting and entering, are going to reincarnate and be living their lives from a higher frequency, where they are not going to be in that repetitive karmic way, which is all the children that are being born now. They're coming at those higher frequencies because they're coming in to help elevate the planet. They're coming in to pull their sleeves up and fill this planet with music, with laughter, with art, with intelligent science, with innovations, with new politics, with new medicine. So the more that we get comfortable with death is not an end, it's just a doorway out. It's exit stage left. Then we find more peace in our heart, so that those of us who are of a higher consciousness, who do maybe get COVID, we can operate as examples of how to treat the body in a way that is more natural, in a way that honors our immunity. So we need examples. For example, we all heard about, I'm saying we all heard, I'm going to assume that you all heard, because this was all over the place, of, of Joe Grogan?
Rogan.
Yes.
Rogan.
Yes. So he has a massive audience of millions and millions and millions of people. And he got coronavirus. And he chose to do treatment another way other than the narrative. Can you see how he opened the door for millions of people to be exposed to new medications that they either didn't know was available before or thought it wasn't a good thing to take? And he helped them remove the blindfolds from his eyes. So when we accept that whatever is happening to the physical vessel is supposed to be happening, and we don't resist it, and because we've done the work, and I know you have, you clear those lower chakras, your intuition will guide you to what is the next best thing to do. Like for me, whatever I had, I don't need to get tested to know I'm sick. And I don't need a label for what's happening. And for me, if I had to label it, it feels like laryngitis. It's all been voice. I'm not in physical pain. Slight discomfort, because when the vocal cords get swollen, it affects the glands. So there is a little discomfort here, but other than that, there's nothing else. So, but I still felt that, you know what? I'm feeling like maybe I need to participate in ivermectin. I need to participate in the Dr. Zelenko protocol. So my intuitive nudge said, do that. So thank you for not letting that scare you. Maybe it concerned you for a little bit and you were able to shift and lift out of it. But if any of us get this thing, and I know some of you have, we get to be examples of how we deal with it. And the world needs as many examples of those who believe in the immunity of the body and the power of God, whether we exit or don't. We need examples of that to counter the narrative of the insanity that only the vaccinated are going to be healthy. When we're seeing that that's not true, we have to have an alternative, because those who have participated in the jabs and are getting COVID, many of them are needing to exit that protocol of treatment, those continuing, jabba-dabba-doos. They need to shift to something else. And as they shift to healthier protocols, they're actually helping their bodies clear up what was put into their bodies that is not helpful, and still activate immunity. So thank you so much for that share, Kat. What about anybody else? How is a Course of Love, Course of Miracles in this conversation, or those of you who are studying A Course of Love also, seeing shifts in your life? Vicki, you were able to feel more loving and compassionate towards yourself for some past mistakes that you made, and normally are very unforgiving towards yourself. Thank you, sister. That is absolutely beautiful. The more that we forgive ourselves, the more we're raising in frequency. And the Course in Miracles teaches that forgiveness is very simple. We forgive ourselves for having forgotten how loving we can be. We have forgotten that we are the child of God, that we have the ability to be kind and loving and generous and compassionate and patient at all times. So that forgiveness for when we were 3 or when we were 10 or 18 or 30, and we did or said something that was unkind and unloving and took action, maybe broke up a relationship or cheated or lied or stole or whatever it is that we did. we did it only because we forgot that there was another way. We forgot that we could have been the presence of love instead. So we forgive ourselves for forgetting. That's all that it is, for forgetting that we have that Christ light in us that we can always tap into. So thank you so much for that. All right, let's go to lesson 164. Now are we one with him who is our source? What time but now can truth be recognized? Well, isn't that appropriate for this day and age? So not only are we recognizing two truths, because there comes a time when we move into the 4D world, where we're operating in the fourth dimension. And those of you who are in my mastery class, you heard me say this just a couple days ago. When we're operating in the fourth dimension, we operate in paradox. Things have two meanings. So let's look at this word here, truth. What time but now can truth be recognized? The truth in the 3D world, the truth in the ego world is really facts. The facts that prove what the ego has been doing is actually false, is a lie. So the truth in the physical world is the illumination of that which the ego has used to manipulate, to delude people, to disempower people. So we are shining the light of truth on the ego's misdoings. But truth from the 5D world, when we are at a higher consciousness, truth with a capital T has nothing to do with facts, has nothing to do with so-and-so lied or they were corrupt. The truth with a capital T has everything to do with embodying the Christ consciousness. And now are we one with him who is our source? So now is the best time for us to recognize that we're not of this world. We are the Christ consciousness that came to this world. Forgive ourselves for forgetting that that's who we've always been, and begin to cast the light of truth, which means compassion for those who are being exposed for the lies that they told. Forgiveness to them, because there are brothers and sisters in Christ. They have the Christ in them, but they don't remember. So if you're practicing true forgiveness, you know it's true forgiveness once you can forgive others, for they know not what they were doing. Because one thing is to forgive ourselves for forgetting what we were doing. Another one is to forgive others for forgetting the truth of who they are, forgetting the truth of who we are. So that truth with a capital T that we're bringing into the 3D world is the truth of being very firm. This is not okay. This behavior is not okay. I'm not going to judge you, brother, and I'm not going to battle with you, brother, because in my defenselessness, my safety lies. But I am going to let you know what are the facts, what is the small t truth. I'm going to share them with you if you're open. And if you're willing to see things that I've discovered, I'm happy to show you. But we don't need to go out there and beat anybody up over the head, because that's what egos that are waking up are doing. Those who have transcended or are transcending the ego don't need to go to battle. We need to be examples of the end of the battle, so that we can show what peace looks like, so that we can show what joyfulness looks like in a world that has lost its joy. What will shift these people that are in fear faster is to see their neighbor, their sister, their mother, their grandmother, their brother, their uncle, their boss completely at ease and at peace and not losing their shit when all the stuff gets illuminated that has been in the darkness. That is going to be the most potent superpower. It's for us to be at peace, and we're not at peace if we're not grounded in capital T truth. So now is the time to recognize the truth, both truths, and to also be grateful that the shifts of consciousness, the clearing up of our density, the waking up is happening faster and faster and faster because we have more and more light on the planet facilitating the shift that is taking place. Sentence 2, the present is the only time there is. Jesus did it back in his day, telling the truth. Wayne Dyer did it back in his day. Ram Dass did it in his day. Rumi did it in his day. It's always now the best time to tell the truth, to embody the truth, to live and to recognize and then live by the truth. Truth is always in style because it's always now and present for one who wakes up, finds it in them and wants to share it with others. And so today, this instant, now we come to look upon what is forever there, not in our sight in the world that we see, but in the eyes of Christ. It's inside of us. We have to look with the eyes of Christ so we can see the good in others, so that we can see the Christ in them, so that we can recognize their call for love and not our ego's desire to judge them, because our ego doesn't recognize love. It only recognizes right and wrong, good and bad. So when we are, you're bad, you're doing wrong, let me show you the truth, that's ego. When we see it as a call for love, it's compassionate. You know, I see that you've taken the jabba dabba doos and you've had 3 or 4 of them and you're still scared. Is it okay if I share with you why I'm not scared and I've never taken one? Or I took one and I changed my mind and now I feel really confident that I'm not going to take anymore. May I share that with you? Are you open? That is what is going to help shift more minds. One who is respecting the other, because you're operating from the Christ consciousness. Jesus never went around teaching people with a baseball bat. Jesus shared the truth and let it go. He spoke it and let it go. Notice that they weren't writing anything. They didn't record their Zooms. They didn't put it in writing. They didn't even have books. It wasn't until much later that things were recorded, sayings that he gave, which is why it's so difficult to really get the essence of what Jesus said, because they're interpretations. So speak your truth and let it go. Just blow it out. Once your throat chakra is clear, you share, it comes out and it doesn't look for validation. When we operate from a throat chakra that is blocked by our third chakra, and we are operating with fears and emotionals, immature emotions from the second chakra, when we speak, we expect validation. But when you are clear, when you speak, you're releasing it like an oak tree releases its acorns. That doesn't care where they get blown. You know, big storm can come and blow those acorns 3 miles down the road. The oak tree does not care. It is putting them out. We need to be like the oak tree. We need to allow what comes through us and release it, and it will be planted and it will blossom wherever it happens to go. So let me read this part again. Today, this instant now, we come to look upon what is forever there. It is to come to understand how it is to look through the eyes of Christ. And the Course in Miracles gives us those 10 characteristics. You live that way, you are seen through the eyes of Christ. If you're open-minded, you're tolerant, you're generous, and you are patient, and you trust the plan, God's plan, you have nothing to worry about. Then you're operating in total honesty in terms of really, you know, the capital T truth. Now God can use you as a beacon of light on this planet. So sentence number 4, he looks past time and sees eternity as represented there. He, the Christ in us, looks past time, not caring. You know, who did that? Gandhi did that. Jesus did that when he was in physical form. They weren't trying to change things so that we could get to the 5th dimension. They were doing whatever needed to be done in that moment. Martin Luther King Jr. did what he did in that moment. The founding fathers did what they did in that moment. When you are aligned with the truth of the creative source, you will do what needs to be done in that moment because you're aligned with eternity. And when we are aligned with eternity, we come in here without fear of losing the body because the body is temporary. And we align with the eternal aspect of ourselves that if it transitions, it's okay. We are eternal. We're not going anywhere. And then you can see what is happening. You are participating through God's inspiration, using you as a piece of the puzzle that needs to bring whatever needs to be brought in that moment, that oak tree that drops the right acorns that plant the seeds exactly where they need to be planted, because you'll be inspired to speak truth that this planet hasn't been hearing. That's how we bring eternity to the now moment, is we speak the truth that has been true always, will be true always. And when you in alignment know we should be loving each other, we should be treating each other with respect, with collaboration and co-creation, you're talking about what is eternal, what incarnations into ascended dimensions are doing, because it's a truth that is true always. But we all move through the 3D world of density, find our voice in the 4th dimension, we're changing our mind, and then we move into the 5th dimension. That is always there, but in our mind, we're accessing it by recognizing the Christ in us. Sentence number 5 says, he hears, and he here is referring to us. We hear the sounds the senseless, busy world engenders, yet we hear them faintly. Excuse me. Meaning, all that stuff that's happening in the world, and I started a group a couple of years ago to share information about what's happening in the world. I started this shortly after the elections of 2016. Not to be present, excuse me. Vocal cords need to loosen up. Drinking that tea helps, but water helps a little faster sometimes. So I started sharing information about what's going on in the world, just so people could become self-aware. But I don't sensationalize what's happening. I'm not, oh my God, the sky is falling. I'm the floor is dropping from the density. We are opening up the lower frequencies. We're opening them up and giving them an opportunity for those who have that frequency to rise. So you can use the information that is out there, but you hear it from the human you that is listening with the eyes of the Christ you, going, people need to hear this, because when we're in density, we have to see egoic things and shift our mind about egoic beliefs and structures before we can accept the otherworldly. So the mind has to be prepared for otherworldly. And what prepares us for to accept the otherworldly is to see the insanity in the world, is to go through something traumatic, a loss of a child, a big illness, getting fired, losing your money, or divorce. Those things make you go, okay, there's got to be another way, So we have to see what's there, not to judge it, but to learn from it. So that's what we're being guided here to do, is you're going to hear the sounds of what's going on, but it's going to be faint. It's going to be informing you. It's not going to be activating you into marching and burning down buildings. That's not going to happen. For beyond them, those faint sounds, for beyond them, all he hears, the song of heaven and the voice for God more clear, more meaningful, more near. So the more that we get clear about what God wants to inspire into us, our intuition, our gut feel. The more we hear that clearly, the less we're listening to the noise of the ego. But you cannot stop listening to the noise of the ego until you unpack those chakras, lower chakras. What are the beliefs that I hold that had me be so judgmental and so angry or so revengeful? Unpack those emotions. What is that pain that you felt when you were 2, 10, 20, 30 that you couldn't tell anybody about? We've got to enter inside and go to the places where we have compartmentalized ourselves and created different identities, different personalities, the mom personality, the doctor personality, the daughter or boyfriend or wife or spouse personality, the boss person, politician person. We're so fragmented inside that we got to clean all that up so that you then are you, no matter where you are, which is one of the beautiful things, because I don't have to change my mask. Wherever I am, wherever I go, there I am, always exactly the same way. Well, that's because I went inside, and I don't need to pretend to be the know-it-all in the business world. I don't need to pretend to be the boss, the mom knows best with my children. We're all equals. I don't need to pretend, that I like my friends when I really don't like them, but I'm going to pretend that I like them because I want to be not invited to the party. I don't need to play those games anymore. So those masks come off, and that allows us to more clearly hear the voice for God. So the second paragraph says, the world fades easily away before his sight. As you activate that Christ consciousness, you operate from those characteristics, the world will no longer be a world that scares you. It'll be a world that informs you, where is the mass consciousness at? Then you can be gentle, you can be generous, you can be tolerant. And that becomes the teacher that they get to see. Somebody who is operating so different than one with the mask that is always selfish and greedy, and it's all about me. In relationships that are codependent, that are always about, look at me, I'm so special. So once we can clear up the need for specialness inside of us, we show up as one who is exactly the same as everybody else. We literally show up in the world as God created us, because God is in us, and our creation is an emanation of God's light. That's all that it is. But we have to learn to allow it to flow. Sentence 2, its sounds grow dim. A melody from far beyond the world increasingly is more and more distinct, an ancient call to which he gives an ancient answer. You will recognize them both, for they are but your answer to your Father's call to you. Christ answers for you, echoing yourself, capital S self, using your voice to give his glad consent, accepting your deliverance for you. What awaits us when we align with God is absolutely remarkable. The peace that passes all understanding can only be understood when you feel it. And it passes all ego understanding, but it makes perfect sense to a mind that has been decluttered from ego thought system. And when we understand that God is in us, we're eternal. And the paradox is, but I'm in a world with a body that is temporary. We make peace inside of ourselves. We allow ourselves to be guided. For a very long time, I didn't want to do what God was telling me to do. I'm Laina. I know it all. I'm the smartest chick on the planet. I don't want to be told what to do. Well, that was my ego. Did not want to acquiesce to what I was being inspired, because it was so different and radical. And, one of the first intuitive inspirations that I got, that I was like, oh my God, I can't do that. This is going to sound really silly, but it was very important for me at the time. I used to send Christmas cards. I had to buy the best, the nicest, the most beautiful, And I even learned how to write pretty so that I could have the most outstanding Christmas cards anybody would receive. And I sent them to just about everybody I know. So it was hundreds upon hundreds of Christmas cards by hand. I did not print my Christmas cards. It was such an elaborate thing. It wasn't until I began to hear, don't send them. You don't have to do that, because it was so much work. Don't send them, that I heard my ego say, what do you mean don't send them? What are people going to think? I love receiving the calls and the messages, people letting me know. I had people who sent me thank you notes for the Christmas cards that I sent because they were so beautiful and so personalized. And I wanted to write something so they knew, I've been watching you all year, kind of like Santa Claus. I saw this happen. Congratulations on the birth of your child, the graduation, the blah, 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 blah. I was such a ass kisser. My ego had a fit when I heard the inspiration that said, don't send them. God in me was wanting me to know, you're not your Christmas cards. You're not that. And I kid you not, I went and did what my ego said. I bought the cards. I brought them home. I filled them out. And that voice kept saying, don't send them, don't send them. And with tears rolling down my eyes, I didn't send the cards that year. I felt shame that I was listening to this voice inside of me instead of the voice, that I was listening to the voice of God instead of my ego. I felt like, oh my God, am I becoming a wishy-washy person? Who am I? I felt guilt. I spent all that money. I had all those beautiful cards and I all that postage. So I had a lot of issues that I had to work through. And then I had to face people who said, Laina, I didn't get your card. Did you send it? Is it stuck in the mail? You know, were you late with it? What happened? Because I always get your cards. And then I had to say, no, I decided I wasn't sending them. What? You're not sending cards? Such an insignificant thing that the world has made so big, because there are many people who profit from that. The post office sells postage, the Hallmark sells cards, the grocery store or the drugstore sells you the card. So everybody's getting a cut. Lots of lives depend on the sales of those Christmas cards. But I decided with something so small that I would give it a shot. And it wasn't long after that, that God, the voice in me, that Holy Spirit, Christ consciousness began to say, and I was very involved. I was an over involved busybody because I needed the whole world to see how wonderful I was. I was full-time, had a full-time job. I was a realtor. Before I was a realtor, I was in advertising sales. Big money, high power, lots of clothes, great outfits, constantly showing properties or in advertising, showing the billboards that I used to sell. So I had to look good. And then I had to drive a nice car because in both I would take clients with me. And so there was a lot of pretense with that. And then, so I did those things full time. I had kids at home and I was involved in the homeowners association. And I was involved in the PTA at the school. I was a heavily involved room parent with my kids. I was very much a dance mom. My daughter was in dance school, in dance company, and I would go on trips with her all over the place. And I wasn't a controlling dance mom. She thanks me for that. But I was always participating in the fundraising, whatever. We had somebody in our neighborhood get sick. I put on events. We had somebody shot. I put on a blood drive. We had somebody whose child had Down syndrome. For 5 years, I was the person who put on the Down syndrome fundraiser, and we raised a ton of money. And guess how we did it? We did it through auctioning things, which meant I had to collect all this crap from around the community, get restaurants to donate stuff, get people to donate gently used things from home, pictures that they weren't using, art, and price it and set it up. yes, I had some people who helped me, but I needed to get all the credit for everything. So I was so exhausted, so overcommitted. And when Jesus started working with me after the Christmas cards came, oh, you don't need to buy a new outfit. What? That person see me wear this outfit. What? I'm not going to go to Steinmart and East Cobb and get myself a new outfit? Nope, you don't need to have a new outfit. Then the next voice, you don't need to renew your participation in the PTA. What are people going to think about me? And little by little by little, I started dropping. I stopped being the homeowners association head of the women's club. I stopped being the tennis team person who was in charge of, we call them captains. I stopped doing that. People thought, what is happening to Laina? She's like our little go-getter. She does everything that nobody else wants to do. What's happening? Their egos didn't like that I was no longer doing all of these things, because I was no longer feeding my ego to get their egos to like me. So lots of things have to get dropped off. That's what this is saying. You stop the outer world. The pull of the outer world gets quieter and quieter because you begin to hear the voice inside of you guiding you. Why? Because now are we one with him who is our source. My source was about happiness, not about ass kissing. I wanted to come inside, feel my joy, and do whatever I did. Because after that time, all my volunteering was very minimal, and it was only because it felt really good, and I knew I was doing it in service to others. It was not about what Laina's going to get. I volunteered with my kids' school because it was good for them. I was in service to others. Absolutely, all the positions that were very visual or very upfront positions, PTA president or tennis captain, I let all those positions of status or rank or whatever, I let that go. And I found more time with my kids. I found more time with me, more time, with my family. It was absolutely remarkable. God wanted me to come inside and enjoy what was in front of me, to enjoy this life that is temporary. But I couldn't enjoy this temporary life because I was so busy trying to get the outer world to immortalize me and maybe put statues about me at the school or a picture or something that would say, here was the most active participant, PTA mom. Crazy stuff that our ego has us do. In paragraph 3, this will be the last one we read. How holy is your practicing today as Christ gives you his sight and hears for you and answers in your name the call he hears. What that means is we begin to listen. So if you know that the characteristics are honesty, one of the characteristics, and you hear something tell you, oh, don't participate, don't do that, don't go to that thing. And the ego saying, what do you mean you're not going to go? Go to the voice of honesty. Honestly, do I need to go to that? Honestly, what does my ego want to get out of that? And you start getting really honest, you will notice that you will be able to hear both voices inside of you. The manipulative voice that comes from insecurity, that clings to other people, that suffocates others, and the voice of reason, the voice of God within you that frees all beings to be themselves, that respects everybody. Because when they tell you where they are, you trust them because you learn that everybody has a voice inside of them. If they're listening to it or not, it's none of your business, because you make it your business to listen to the voice in you. And then you have the question, what? Is that okay for me to do that? And then you get the answer, yeah, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And we're training ourselves to hear that with more clarity. Sentence 2. So how quiet is the time that you give to spend with him beyond the world? How, because it does, your head gets so quiet. You begin to hear so clearly. The distractions took me years. I'm going to say that was about a 5-year process to fully hear clearly the distinction between the two voices, and another year to really get my voice to be so quiet that I don't have ego chit chatter all the time. That's why I don't get pulled into reactions, because my mind is quiet and I move from responding appropriately by what the Holy Spirit is guiding me, Christ is guiding me. So how quiet is the time that you give to spend with him beyond the world? How easily are all your seeming sins forgot? If I'm not listening to the ego, oh my God, what are people going to think about me? Well, the sins, which were using people, selfishness, greedy, it's about me. It was about, how is this going to benefit my family? How my kids going to get better positions in the teams because of all that I do at the school or on their teams? I could hear the foolishness of my ego, and all of those sins that I carried guilt and shame when I began to discover them, they just go away, because your commitment is to forgive. I forgot for 41 years that I was a child of God. So you forget, and the mind that's what makes the mind quiet, because you don't have those sins. You're not judging yourself. How easily are all your seeming sins forgot, and all your sorrows unremembered. Now the mind is no longer recycling, regurgitating. Dad left me when I was 10. My husband didn't love me, or my girlfriend cheated on me, or my mom kicked me out of the house, or didn't let me wear what I wanted to wear, my favorite dress, whatever it is. Now you are not operating in that constant repetition, so it gets unremembered. It's just releasing. On this day is grief laid by, for sights and sounds that come from nearer than the world, because it comes from inside, are clear to you who will today accept the gifts he gives. God, Christ in us. And God is nothing more than the Christ essence, the light of intelligence, the essence of energy that is pure. That is what the Christ is. The Christ in us, which is God in us, can be heard more clearly when we have decluttered our mind. And what decluttering the mind is, you choose to listen to God. You're not distracted by the ego. And if you think about this journey, it's a journey that happens in tandem, like a seesaw. For one to go up, the others have to go down. So we were born listening to God, and little by little, we stopped listening to God and we began to listen to the ego. When you choose to listen to God, you are tipping the balance. You are shifting and lifting. You are rising to see more clearly what is true. And the characteristics that A Course in Miracles teaches are what you use to gauge, am I on track or not? Because that's what they give us the opportunity to practice mastering our ability to listen for the answer. Well, if the answer is not generous, you're not listening to God. If the answer, it doesn't have to do with honesty or trust or open-mindedness or joy, you're not listening to the Holy Spirit. So those things that the ego tells you, when you run them through the question, what would Jesus do? What would Christ do? What would love do? Those characteristics come in immediately. If you are listening to the voice for God, ego comes down, you raise your consciousness, you raise your awareness, you raise your vibration. It happens in tandem. You don't need to get rid of the ego. You need to engage with God. You engage with God. The person who is on a seesaw, it doesn't have to walk over here to push them down. They engage in pushing themselves up. They push, they shift and lift up to get up. Then they have to do it. And one day, this back and forth stops when we listen to only the ego, and it runs the show, and it does not let God have, it edges God out. It cannot edge its way back up. But when you make the commitment to listen to only to the voice for God, because you've accepted that you are one with the creative source, you are literally in control of who you are. You will lift and stay there, because you will have the stability, the power to know who you really are. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So let me stop here. Thank you so much for being part of this beautiful lesson 164. I want to hear from you. So how about if everybody unmutes themselves and share what nuggets did you get from today's lesson or some of the shares earlier? Don't be shy. Yes, Miss Cat, you going to share?
Well, I was just joining in, you know. I mean, I just love this connection when I'm in any of the groups that take me to higher consciousness and are reminders of, because certainly I slip, and what's happening for me, I'm aware of it. I'm very aware, and sometimes it's like, oh shucks, I'm so all right. I gotta be honest about this and deal with it. So I just, for me, a lot of it is, do I really want to suffer? Because in listening to the ego, which is fear, you're going to suffer. And I put myself through a ton of, oh Lord knows the amount of suffering I've had in my life, juicy stuff. But so I just love it. I really so appreciate. And you think after all these years, I might not still be on here, but I am, and I love it, and it's beautiful to me that you're sharing. And so I just really appreciate the opportunity to connect, because I'm choosing it at least twice a week with spirit and with this beautiful group and this energy. So I thank you. I just thank you for that. It helps get me back on track.
Yeah.
When I'm slipping, you know.
Same here. Same here. It's being in community is just so powerful. You know, I've had the thought for a couple of years. It's like, I know my truth. I'm at peace. What do I need to teach? Everybody will figure it out their own way. But the thought of letting go of the community, not having a community that I experience the movement of God through me, because the way it happens for me is I have to be with a group. Two or more have to gather. There's got to be a receiver for it that to flow through me. And I absolutely love it. It's just so beautiful. And thank you for being here. And today I could have easily canceled, oh, my voice, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't going to let my ego talk me out of not sharing because of how my voice sounds. The old Laina, oh, I can't let them hear me sound like this. This is recorded. This is going to be there forever. What if somebody comes and hears me for the first time with a funky voice and they're like, oh, I can't listen to that woman. Then I'll lose somebody. Who cares? Who cares? I don't let that ego run my life. Miss Stacy, did you get a nugget today you want to share?
I liked how you shared. I recognized in myself the overachieving mom, the stay-at-home mom, the PTA secretary, the over volunteering, and I know I was doing it more in a selfish thing. I wanted the status of it all, so I giggled to myself because I was that mom too. Because I thought, oh, if I'm not working, then this is my job and I need to do this. And then I need to work the networks for the school. So my kids get whatever. It kind of cracked me up a little bit because I saw myself in that years ago, but it is, yeah, you start listening and realizing it's just all ego, same with Christmas cards as well. I never did the handwriting. I did the printing, I got lazy and did the prints, but I was like, oh, I need to make sure I send all these different Christmas cards. Then I just stopped sending them as well. Because I felt like, I don't need to send them. I don't need to do the work of it. And then I remember my husband at the time, he's like, well, you have to send Christmas cards. And so a couple of years I begrudgingly sent them, because he thought we had to send them. It's just funny how you like think, like, it is kind of funny to look at it and be like, oh, why did I care so much about what people thought, or all of that? It's just kind of funny now. But
well, but that was the conditioning of the world. That is how the world got us to value the education system. After all, we're putting our time there. It must be a good system. It got us to value shopping and spending and how we look. It's part of the indoctrination. And to think about looking back, because my kids were 8 years apart, I was literally in the same elementary school for 12 freaking years.
yeah. Right.
Finally, when Spencer, 6 years for one and 6 years for the other one, they didn't overlap. So it's literally 6 years and 6 years.
Yeah.
I realized, oh my God, all those years that I was driving myself crazy, we could have lived in a house that was much smaller. We could have lived with a used car. We could have had a much simpler life, and I could have been home eating bonbons, sitting on the couch, enjoying life when the kids were off to school. But anyway,
I know.
instead I was, kissing ass instead of eating bonbons. So funny.
Yeah.
So who else? Anybody else want to share any nuggets? And if not, we will complete today. So grateful each time you guys come and join us. And if you're watching this and you like it, please hit the like button and subscribe button on my YouTube channel and hit the like on the video. That's the way the algorithms work. I don't need you to like me, but I do need you to like the YouTube video so that this will get to more people. All right, everybody, you all have a wonderful rest of your week. Stay warm if you're in a cold place, and stay cool if you're in a warm place. And we'll see you next week for another episode of Ascension with A Course in Miracles, where we use A Course in Miracles to really understand how to shift our consciousness into a higher dimension. Love you all so much. We'll see you next week.
I love you, Laina, and everybody. Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Patricia, good to see you there. All righty.